Avast ye! It's part 2 of the Captain Wars! Yarr! Yo! How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Unbuckled Comics, where I read and review comics just for you. I'm your host, Unbuckled Cape, and this week we have another one of our Unbuckled and Unscripted episodes, and it's with sidekick Captain Al-Ktraz. As I said before, this is part 2 of our Captain Wars. 2 weeks ago, we got Captain N doing the Superman Arkham review, and now we get Captain Al-Ktraz doing the Spider-Man the Animated Series review. Before we get to all that, though, I'd like to let you know that there is a Facebook and Instagram page of the same name, Unbuckled Comics, where you can keep up with upcoming episodes, DM me, put comments out for episodes, with an asterisk behind that. We'll get to that in a second. And, just spice up your feed with all the nerdy goodness that I can provide. Alright, so this episode is, lengthy. I'm sure if you've looked, you're like, holy cow, this is about 4 times longer than what a normal Unbuckled Comics episode is. And you would be right. It's lengthy. We reviewed the whole darn series. So that's a mistake that we won't make again from now on when, not an if, when I do more cartoon reviews. We're just going to be looking at singular seasons or volumes or however that plays out. So I do want to get to some listener comments, but before I do that, this was supposed to be our last episode before we went to a new publishing schedule and opened up a Patreon, and I need to let you guys know that that is not happening, partly. So I have a new job at work, a new position at work, I guess we should say, and I've been adjusting to that. I have side jobs in the field that I am actually trained for, that I've been working on. September is an incredibly busy month, and truth be told, I felt that the podcast has gotten slightly stale. So I decided to put off opening up a Patreon for the time being. So September, I'm still going to release an episode every Tuesday. And then I'm still going to release the solicitations episode when that is scheduled, and then somewhere mid-month I will release a Unbuckled and Unscripted. So basically I want to test run the workload that I'm going to have before I dive into it and then ask people for their hard-earned money and then not be able to deliver what I promise. So September is going to be a test month for the workload for me, and then in October, I believe, I was writing that stuff in my other notebook, I don't have it sitting here. I'm going to change things up a little bit. Comic book reviews are going to be the bread and butter of this show because that's what I wanted to do, and I really enjoy doing it. It's a way for me to keep up on my comic reading while also talking about what I've been reading with you guys. But instead of me doing 4 episodes a month where all I'm doing is reviewing comic books, we're going to start throwing some things in there, mix it up a bit, break up, and, hopefully spice up the podcast for you non-Patreons as well. I don't want to just give the Patreons all the variety. I want to switch it up a bit. So I don't remember what I have planned for October as far as, actually, I think I do. I think October, I'm gonna say variety. I'm not calling it a variety episode, but the non-comic book review, the variety episode for October, with November being the 1-year anniversary, I think I'm going to do like an Ask Unbuckled and kind of like a state of the comics. We'll just have a fun conversation there, and I think my Unbuckled Unscripted, the Patreon episode, is going to be a review of Batman Arkham Origins, because in October The Arkham Trilogy is getting released on the Nintendo Switch, which I can't wait for because I have yet to actually play Arkham Knight, and Asylum and City are some of my favorite video games of all time, and I want to talk about the black sheep of the quartet, if you will, and give that a review because it was missed in this compilation of games, I guess. I wish it was thrown in there, but we'll get to that in October. So I just wanted to give everyone kind of a heads up on what's coming up the line, coming down the road. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for waiting through that. I know we have a really big episode to get to, so let's hit up some listener comments. We're going to start with last week's sidekick. I kept wanting to say Kickstarter. We're going to start with last week's sidekick, Captain N. Captain N says, "Pop the champagne." It's Captain Al-Ktraz with that smooth British voice. I am excited to have this episode fill my ears. Also, Spider-Man or whatever his name is. Actually, I added the whatever his name is. He just said Spider-Man or whatever. Then we have Storm Beagle, who says, "Can't wait to hear this episode. My favorite part of the Spider-Man series were all the baddies. Batman takes the crown for best rogues gallery, but Spider-Man isn't far behind. Mysterio was always my favorite." Yeah, we touch on that a little bit there, Storm Beagle. Spider-Man has a great rogues gallery, and I think, I don't know, man. I don't know who's better, Batman or Spider-Man. Maybe that would be a fun episode to do down the line, talk about which superhero has the best rogues gallery. Maybe I can rank them. I like that idea, Storm Beagle. I like where your head's at. Then we have Papina. Papina says, "Nice, this sounds epic." I certainly think it was epic. I love the conversation that Captain Al-Ktraz and I had, and by the runtime alone, you should be able to tell that we enjoyed it as well. Then we have Super Dave from the Treehouse Anime Podcast. Super Dave says, "This intro music worked for X-Men, but I don't like it for Spider-Man. The show itself was a load of fun." Dave, I think that's a hot take, my friend. You're gonna hear about this in a little bit. Captain Al-Ktraz and I spent some time on that theme song, and whew, I don't agree with you. If you guys don't know, Super Dave is one of my friends, and he has his own podcast called Treehouse Anime Pod. If you like anime, manga, those kinds of things, I think you should go over and check it out. He does like a deep dive into the production behind anime. So great podcast. He puts a lot of time and effort to it, and it is very, very well done. And then our last commenter is, well, look at that. It's Captain Al-Ktraz himself. He says, this is from the my Instagram page. He says, "Just so happened to see this pop up while I'm reading some Spider-Man comics. It must be fate." Fate it is, buddy. And as fate would have it, it's time for us to get to the episode. Man, what a month for the Unbuckled Brigade. It's the final month of me having a bi-weekly show. Next month, September, I'm going to go to a weekly show. Beginning of the month, we did a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle episode, and we can never have enough of them. The episode after that was a sidekick episode we did with Brian, or better known as Captain N. And now we have an Unbuckled and Unscripted, which we get few and far in between. And this one is with my swashbuckling buddy from across the pond, former/current YouTuber, aspiring voice actor, your friend and also mine, Alan Patashik, better known as Captain Al-Ktraz. How's it going, my good friend?
Fantastic, Mr. Cape. Thank you very much. I've got 3 days off. I've got a drink in hand, and better than that, I get to talk about my absolute favorite superhero.
Yeah, so I guess kind of about that, we got to talking one time, and you said about you wanted to be a voice actor. It was one of your dreams, and I thought, well, I'm always looking for reasons to get guests on the show. Thought that was a good one, but you didn't feel like you read any comics that I have read, and instead you made the suggestion that we talk about a show, and that show is the 1990s Spider-Man animated series, which is a fantastic pick.
Absolutely brilliant show.
So, just before we get to that, Captain Al-Ktraz here is been a long time member of the Discord that we have of the community, and you have your own little channel, little space in the Discord. I titled it "Marvelous Journey." You wanna kind of tell us about that?
Yeah, so just a little bit before the lockdown, I decided for whatever reason that I wanted to read as many, if not all, of the Marvel comics, starting right from the very beginning with Fantastic Four issue 1. And God, it's taken me a good few years to get even to where I am today, and I'm still nowhere near finished. But it's been quite a journey learning where all these characters came from, where they started, first appearances, crossovers, all of that stuff. It's been a trip.
And you mentioned that we're talking about your favorite character,
Oh
which
yes.
I assume the reason he's your favorite character is because of this deep dive into the Marvel history.
Actually, no. I would have to say that Spider-Man is my favorite superhero because of the very show we're about to talk about.
All right, sweet. Um, we're gonna get to that, I promise. But I want to give you a chance to give your couple of plugs here. You just so everyone knows, we are recording this extremely early. I'm incredibly proactive, and I like to get stuff out of the way, especially with summer right around the corner. That way, we have it in the bank. And as I mentioned, you and I have we figured it's a 5 hour time difference.
Something like that, yes.
And we're both parents, both full-time working. I didn't want to mess around with summer and trying to get this scheduled. I wanted to do it as quickly as possible. um, at the moment, you had a former YouTube channel that you were just recently talked about reviving. You want to kind of tell us about that?
Sure thing. Again, for a long, long time, almost as long as I can remember, I've wanted to be a voice actor. And I thought, well, no time like the present. Again, during lockdown, when everyone was trying new things, I thought, well, let's try my hand at voice acting. And I thought, well, what better way to get over the nerves and the hump of putting yourself out there than by just putting out a few videos and letting people follow my journey into voice acting.
So your YouTube channel, uh, what's the name of it?
Well, it's called Follow My Voice. Again, I don't have that many subscribers at the moment. It has the rather sexy name of Follow My Voice 7614. And it's just got a few videos about what equipment I'm using, what I'm doing to try and get into this field, a couple of potential reads and things like that. I'm looking to do some audiobooks and things like that and have them up there at some point as well.
Yeah, sweet. And again, as we're recording this, it's actually May. The listeners aren't going to hear it until the end of August. Um, you posted a video for us in the Discord to listen to. It was a Star Wars related video. May the 4th being yesterday, I think May the 4th was.
That's right. Yeah.
And in that video, you did a deep dive into some of the voice actors and things like that in it, and it was. I'm not kidding you. It was superb. I felt like I was watching a video of someone that was doing YouTube for a long time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Um, and speaking of that deep dive into voice acting, you and I have had a couple of phone conversations while we were going through the Spider-Man, just getting used to each other's, the way we talk, our cadence, or things like that. And we always ended up talking about the show, even though as much as what we wanted to avoid it because we wanted to save it for this. But you had mentioned that you had some voice acting tidbits on Spider-Man the animated series.
Yeah, as I say, this is a fantastic series and it's full of some absolutely incredible voice talent. And again, much like my I Know That Voice videos, where I pick a voice actor and just talk about some of the roles that you may know, you may not know. It's something of an interest of mine that who's voicing these roles. Um, so, for example, I mean, there are some. Did you know? I know you're a big fan of Venom, for example.
Hmm.
Do you know who actually plays him in this series?
I
Venom
don't know
and,
that.
of course, Eddie Brock. Well, it's Hank Azaria from The Simpsons, Mo Sizlek.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. And, there are some other fantastic voice actors as well. Of course, you've got Jennifer Hale as Felicia Hardy and uh, Mira Furlan for the Babylon 5 fans out there, if there are any perhaps as old as I am. And and of course, one that I think you're particularly fond of as well from your time with the BTAS.
Yeah, yeah. I was. It's and again, this is where you and I, those previous conversations, I kind of wish we would have saved some of it. Mark Hamill ends up appearing in this, and he's my second favorite voice actor, and the only reason he's second is because the guy that he worked with the most was Batman.
Absolutely, and may he rest in peace.
Yeah, right. Yep. Um, and I don't, it's just funny because I was watching the show and watching it a lot. I actually spent most of my time every time I would do dishes, I'd watch the show.
Right, right.
But the couple of times that I had it on the TV and Mark Hamill plays Hobgoblin and he came on, I would say to my wife that, that's Mark Hamill. Do you know who that is? And me being me, she goes, well, that's the animated Joker. Well, yeah, but he's also Luke Skywalker. I was thrown for such a loop when I found out that the voice of the Joker was actually Luke Skywalker. I still have a hard time getting over it.
I remember distinctly when I was younger finding that out and just think, really? Luke Skywalker and the Joker, same person? I just couldn't wrap my head around it.
Yep. It still feels weird. But man, who did you say Venom was?
Hank Azaria.
Hank Azaria. I'll have to remember that now.
I
And
know, I know he does loads of voices on The Simpsons, but I think Mo Sizlek is probably the one he's most well known for.
right. Um, I didn't look up anything about the voice actors because I figured that was more your stick. Do you know the name of the guy that does Peter Parker?
Yeah, it's Christopher Barnes, I think.
Oh, okay. I have heard that name before.
Yeah.
Sticking to the voice acting, he does such a phenomenal job, doesn't he?
Oh god, and considering you hear his voice so much with Spider-Man's internal dialogue, because a lot of it is just him on his own, basically talking to himself, and it never
Right.
gets old. It never gets boring. He does such a fantastic job.
And like what was it? It would have been episode 8, which is the alien costume saga.
Oh, I know what you're gonna say. Go on.
When he has the Venom symbiote suit on him, it's incredible how there's something different.
Mm-hmm.
It is
Absolutely.
so cool that he's able to turn his voice around, and it's not that he's yelling, he's not screaming. There's just a certain tone in his voice, a little extra gruff in it, maybe,
An
and
edge.
it's just, yep, it is fantastic.
Absolutely. And going on from that as well, when he's chasing the Shocker, and when he is actually yelling with the Venom symbiote, that just chills.
Yep, that I can hear it right now. Get back here, Shocker.
That's it, and it's
I think,
just feral.
and then springboarding on to season 4, when I'm gonna pause here. I should have said this at the top. Um, this show came out in the '90s.
Yep.
We're not gonna hide anything.
No, no, I think we're beyond spoilers at this point.
So, there's an episode. The end of season 3 is the death of Gwen Stacy, but instead of Gwen Stacy, it's Mary Jane. Now she doesn't actually die
No.
because it's a kids cartoon. But starting at the beginning of season 4, Peter's grieving because he lost Mary Jane,
Yep.
and we get another shift in his voice acting. But instead of that angry gruff, you can just hear the depression in it.
Yeah, and considering he's usually such a cocky and confident character, It's very noticeable.
Right. And again, I think that's why Spider-Man himself has stood the test of time as a Marvel character. Characters are always shifting, changing. Um, you look at Batman, Superman, Spider-Man,
Hmm.
Captain America, there's maybe 10 characters that have stayed the same pretty much, other than a couple small details that have stayed the same since their creation. And Spider-Man's one of them. And I think that's why he normally is that upbeat, snarky, lovable jerk. But then in an instant, they deal so well with internal trauma and the moral dilemmas, and this show just, I think, encapsulates everything that the early comics did very well.
Absolutely, yeah. It's I think you mentioned it in your Vengeance of Venom episode when you
Such a
said
good book.
I've not actually read it, but you mentioned that Spider-Man manages to balance the superhero aspect with the real life human being aspect so well, and I think that's why the character is so beloved.
Yeah. So moving on from that, because we do have quite a bit to talk about here. um you are a music aficionado, is that fair to say?
I do like a bit of music, yeah, absolutely.
So I have a fun little note for you on the music. First of all, when you watch this show, how many times did you listen to that theme song?
Oh God, I mean it's classic. Maybe like it's up there with the X-Men theme song. It's fantastic. So back in the day, almost certainly every single time. I mean, on this rewatch, I mean, we did sort of binge it quite quickly. So there were times when I did skip for time, but it's a cracking tune.
Yeah. Funny enough, I based it on how many dishes I had to do. If there was a big pile of dishes, I let the theme song play. If there was a smaller pile, I'd skip the theme song. Um,
That's
but
brilliant.
when I was just watching just for me, and I had like no time restraints, I almost always listened to the theme song at least once.
It's brilliant.
So did you catch the reference in episode 8, again, the first part of the alien costume, when he learns that the costume is actually his clothes and he can change the clothes with the thought with a thought?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, he was it Aerosmith or something? I think.
He does. He referenced Aerosmith. The guitar for that theme song is done by Joe Perry from
No
Aerosmith.
way. I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
brilliant.
It was last summer. It was a really rainy day, and I just sat down and I'm like, I need to watch something mind numbing. And I went to the alien costume, watched that first episode, and I caught the Aerosmith reference. And I thought, you know what? Why Aerosmith?
Yeah, now that I think about it, it's just that there's not much real world referencing. So yeah, that does stick out.
So I looked up why Aerosmith. Turns out Joe Perry is responsible for that theme song.
How about that?
So,
Well, there you are. What is it like? Some 30 years on, I'm still learning stuff.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I guess more about the show itself instead of these little factoids that we have. We're not going to go over every episode because each episode had, I think, season one had like 20, and then they were right around like 15 to 12, the rest
Yeah.
of them. So a ton of episodes, even though you could actually, there's something notable in every single one.
Oh, definitely, definitely. But I think the podcast would probably be up as long as the series itself.
Right. Um, so let's just start off season one.
Right.
What were your thoughts on season one?
I liked it. Yeah, absolutely brilliant introduction. Without actually having an introduction, which is something I really appreciate about it. I mean, we all know Spider-Man, we all know the story, and I really appreciated the way that the show just hit the ground running straight away. No explanation. Here's Spider-Man. Here's what he's doing. Here's the lizard. I think is in the first episode,
Yep.
and it's just have at it.
Yep. And that's the very first note I have for season one is no origin.
Yeah.
I appreciate so much that we didn't. Now, later on in episodes, they give you some backstory, and it's they're kind of spoon feeding you a little bit here and there, but
Yeah.
it's relevant to current events. It's not to like, hey, this is Spider-Man. Let's teach you about it's relevant to what's going on,
Yeah.
and I really appreciate it. And in my opinion, that first season is straight fire. Like you said, they hit the ground running. In
Oh, yeah.
episode 2, let me flip my page here because again, there's a lot of I started making out notes for every single episode until I got through season 2, and I'm like, I can't do this. There's no
Yeah.
way. But
At that
episode
point,
2,
you're just writing a
but
dissertation.
yeah, let me read to you all of the main characters in episode 2.
Yep.
You had both of the Osborns, Harry and Norman,
Yep.
Eddie Brock, Felicia Harding, Flash Thompson, J. Jonah Jameson, Alistair Smythe, Kingpin. They mention MJ, but she's not in it. And then, of course, Peter Parker, Aunt May, Robbie Robertson's in it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 characters. That's not Peter and Aunt May.
Yeah, they really
Those
do a
9
good job.
characters basically carry the rest of that show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
Absolutely.
that's incredible that we get all of that in episode 2, and then they run it for another 5 seasons.
Yeah, and it never feels crowded.
Nope,
Like
not one bit.
everything just flows nicely. You get all of these, like, I think the villains in series 1 are some of the best in the whole show. Uh, Spider-Man's villains, I think, and I'll make a concession to you here, I will take the Joker out of the equation, but I think that Spider-Man's villains stack up against even Batman's, if you take the Joker out.
I honestly, I think maybe even with the Joker in,
Really?
I don't know if his Rose Gallery is better, but it really depends. In my opinion, it depends on what you want.
Mm.
Um, I mean, with Batman, obviously there's the Joker, but for Spider-Man, for me, my favorite Spider-Man villain is Venom, and Venom works better as a villain, and I will die on that hill.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
so if I take those two and set them aside because they're my, I mean, Venom's my second favorite comic book character. So I'll pull them aside, and then looking at the rest of them, yeah, I like toothpaste. I like
Toothpaste.
Two-Face and Penguin. I love Freeze, but then you'd look around and turn to Spider-Man's. Well, he has Doctor Octopus, Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, and basically almost anyone in Marvel's Road Gallery at some point had a beef with Spider-Man. So
Oh, yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah, I think so. And even though like his one villain is got 8 limbs like an octopus,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part they actually feel slightly more, their motives always feel a little more realistic than Batman's as well.
Sure, sure, and to a degree more personal.
Oh yeah, yeah, we'll get to that eventually too, how I got a question about that later, but absolutely. And that's always been the argument, DC versus Marvel comic wise, was Marvel always handled that stuff better. Their
Mm.
their characters and stuff always felt a little more realistic, a little more human. Um, I've heard that from multiple people. Is why do you like Marvel more than DC? Well, they feel more real, you know.
Yeah,
And
I
I think
agree.
that goes double for X-Men. I think they do a fantastic job with that.
Oh, yeah, I love the X-Men.
But again, in season 1, we also get, as I mentioned, this is the third time now, the Alien costume saga.
Yep.
By episode 11, we have Hobgoblin's introduction, which you already brought up is the voice of Mark Hamill.
And very noticeably so.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
there
not
is
even a question.
there is just a bit of the Joker about him, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to watch anything with him in it and not go, oh, well, that's Mark Hamill.
Oh,
He
yeah,
sounds just like the
absolutely.
Joker.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
And then episode 13 is the me look here. Oh, so season 1 only has 13 episodes. So then they're all right around 13.
Yeah.
At the end of season 1, it's the episode with the chameleon. At the very end of the episode, Spider-Man is sitting on a building, and did you catch the reference at the end of that? He's talking to a gargoyle.
Yes, Bruce the
Bruce,
gargoyle.
which is a unashamed nod to Batman the Animated Series at the time, which I actually ended up never looking it up, but we had talked about it earlier. I think it was Paul Dini worked on both of these shows. So
Yeah, I think there was a significant amount of crossover on the writing staff.
yeah, which and again, I think it's obvious because if you were asked me what's my two favorite superhero cartoons, it's BTAS and Spider-Man.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
So, but more on track. Episode 1 is just it's just so much fun, isn't it? There's really no like I mean, there's a storyline with Alistair Smythe, right? In the first couple of episodes, his dad passes away, dies in an accident, and then Kingpin employs him for revenge on Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That's basically the plot of season 1. There's a lot of character introductions going through it. On episode 4, there's one. It's an episode that Mysterio is the villain in it, and we get the backstory of Uncle Ben, the great with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, which you knew just had to be in there somewhere.
Right. Episode 3 is when we get Mary Jane's appearance, and it's right at the end. You know, Fate. She does the whole "face it, tiger. You just hit the jackpot," which is like her favorite, her famous line.
Straight from the comics.
Yep. And then, like I said, the rest of the Rogues Gallery. So I think season 1 does such a good job just being a fun cartoon.
Yeah, definitely. While at the same time, it does seed quite a few of the storylines that will be picked up in later series.
Right. So, like in season 2, it starts off the very first episode of season 2. We have the Insidious Six.
Yeah. So I think in one 5-minute span, it undoes literally everything from the first series.
Right. But I mean, it was great to see them jump into that right away. And this is the whole Neogenic Nightmare series.
Neogenic Nightmare. How often?
That,
how often did you hear that?
a lot. A lot. Yeah. So I guess that's a good place to jump into it, huh? For me, if I were to rank the seasons, my least favorite season being 4, which is the Partners in Trouble season.
Yeah.
That's right after um, the Mary Jane incident. And then I would have it season 2, which is the Neogenic Nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Season 3, which is, let me look here, I think I have the title of it, Sins of the Father. And then season 1, which is just Spider-Man, was my favorite. The reason I bring that up is because almost all of my dislikes I have of the show, and just to be clear, I'm nitpicking. I am super nitpicking when I say this, but they come out in season 2 and 4. I get so tired of hearing neogenics and the neogenic recombinator, and every single villain in that has something to do with the neogenic recombinator.
Oh yes. Yeah. The thing is, series 2, I think when I was a kid was probably my favorite series. Only in so much as you've got characters like Morbius, you've got neogenics, which I didn't know what that meant at the time. I still don't.
Yeah.
I just know they said it all the time. It's just like, oh, that's a cool word. It does. on a rewatch, it has slipped down my ranking slightly.
Yeah.
I'll agree with you.
So
And I will go on.
how would you rank them?
Well, I think I'm going to put Partners in Danger, Series 4, last. In so much as this, it just takes ages to get going. It doesn't really. It's slow. Oh, you got me on the spot now.
Oh my word! You know what? I missed one. I only ranked 4 of them. There's 5 seasons. So I'm going to give you some time to think because I can correct this real quick. For me, it goes 4, 2, 3, 5, then 1.
Yeah, okay. I can see. Has Neogenics slipped down that far? Yeah, I think maybe it has. I think for me, Series 3, Sins of the Father, is the best series. Followed by Series 1, 5, 2, and then 4 down at the bottom.
Okay.
I think that, like, I might change my mind, but on the spot, that's probably how I feel about it.
And I can definitely see that because, well, I like season 3, but I have a hard time dropping 5 below my second favorite because of the ending, and we'll get there. We need to talk about that then.
That's why I really had to think about that.
So, yeah, season 2, it just got. I really did get tired of the neogenic stuff. I didn't like the man spider. I didn't care for that stuff.
See, I thought that was cool.
I don't know. Maybe when I was a kid, I liked it a lot more. I did like Morbius. But like you had mentioned in an earlier conversation we had, something that I didn't pick up on that now I hear it in my head and I'm like, oh, that's weird. The word plasma gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah, all the time. Plasma. I mean, they can't have been able to say blood.
Right.
And it's he uses his hands to drain plasma out of people. I mean, it's not really a vampire.
Right. But again, it's understandable why they had to do it that way.
Yeah, sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, season 2 is also where we get the X-Men, right? I'm sure I have it in my notes.
Yes.
Yep.
Because I think he doesn't go, because it's been a few weeks now. I think he goes to see them to try and get help with his man spider condition.
I believe so.
Yep.
And you know what was my big complaint? And actually, I think honestly, this is what puts season 2 so far down for me. I think I could have dealt with the rest of it, but my biggest complaint with that is Spider-Man's like just super arrogant pride towards the X-Men makes no sense in my mind.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. He does come on a bit strong. But
And like I get that the X-Men's whole thing is about prejudice.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make sense to me at all why Peter Parker would be prejudiced towards any X-Men. And like he's like, I don't want to be a mutant. And like I get he's afraid for his life and his future, but I just don't see the Spider-Man character acting that way. It just felt weird.
Yeah. I think it was quite a strange thing that tended to happen a lot, even in the comics. It's just, for some reason, as soon as superheroes met each other for the first time, they had to fight each other for no apparent reason. There's always some misunderstanding, and they just had to go at it.
Yeah. I mean, some of them I could see. Also in season 2, we get the Punisher and Blade, and Spider-Man fights both of them to start. Yeah. And they make sense, especially Blade. Blade's trying to kill Morbius while Spider-Man is trying to save him.
Yeah, Blade was cool. Didn't think much of the Punisher, though.
No, I agree completely. Blade was awesome.
Yeah, I could go a long time without hearing the Punisher say "Battle Van" ever again.
The funny part is when I watch the Netflix Punisher, and he drives around in that van. That's all that I can think of in my head is It's the battle van.
Battle van. Yep. Always just. Oh. Anyway.
You know what? Now that we say that, that show, Spider-Man, does that a lot because I'm looking over my notes of things that I dislike. Um, First and foremost, Peter does not need to say everyone's full name every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I get maybe saying JJ. I think he does that a couple of times, but you don't need to say J. Jonah Jameson every time or
No.
Robbie Robertson. I know who Mary Jane is. I don't need you to say Felicia Harding. There's only one Felicia in the entire show.
But
There's
the thing
only
is,
one Eddie Brock.
they know who they're talking about as well. So who's that for?
That one, and then the and it's said this way every time. Uh-oh, spider sense. Danger.
Yeah. Yeah, fair
That's
enough.
that's episode 1 and then episode 60 whatever, the very last episode. Every single episode you get that uh-oh, spider sense. Danger.
Yeah, maybe just establish it once a season and move on.
You could
I
make
mean,
the argument that Team Rocket sings their song in every single episode, but at least there's variety in that.
listen, I will not have any slander against Team Rocket in my house. they, they are a national treasure.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no, I hear what you say. I mean, and there's the noise, the screen goes crazy. It's just like you don't really need somebody to spell out what's happening to you.
Right. But I guess the show might have been so embedded in that internal monologue that they thought he needed to say something.
Yeah,
But
maybe.
I just don't know why you wouldn't have it something different.
Yeah. Even just uh-oh.
Yeah. But so yeah, I guess the big issue with season 2 for me again was the treatment of the X-Men. Even though having them in the show was awesome because you know that they were a major cartoon, right?
Yep.
And then I guess the repetitiveness of the neogenic stuff. Not all the guest cast was great, like the Punisher. But then Blade was awesome. The other thing in season 2 that I have a love-hate relationship with is season 2 is where we meet Hydro Man.
Yeah. Okay. What did you think of Hydro Man?
I love him as a villain, but to be quite honest, he scares the crap out of me.
He's very stalkerish, isn't he?
When you watch it as a kid, I don't think it dawns on you. Watching it as an adult, I'm like, I'm terrified of this guy.
Absolutely.
And it's so personal, which is what you brought up earlier about how his rogues gallery is so personal. I mean, looking at all of the villains in this, and I mean, they're all here. Everyone, I think, will point to Green Goblin right away, being the Osborns, right?
Yep.
And say that that's a personal villain for him. But man, I think Hydro Man is way more personal.
Yeah, and the thing with Hydro Man is that he's not really even that interested in Spider-Man. Like, he is laser focused on just Mary Jane.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's what's scary about it.
I'm just gonna say, I think that's the part that's scary. Because when you watch that show, you kind of put yourself in the shoes of the hero, and when a loved one is in danger, I think that makes it more terrifying. And I mean, this guy's made of water, right? How can you stop him?
And for the most part, he wins. He gets her. He takes her. It's just like,
Yep.
well, how do you find a guy who's made of water?
Yeah. But so again, I don't know if that's a win for that season or a loss for that season, because although he's a fantastic villain, he gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, true. And they kind of just sort of throw away one-shot episodes. Just like not necessarily connected to the arc as a whole. So they're good episodes, But at times I was thinking, okay, well, let's see what else is going on.
Yeah, right. But then after that, we get what is, you said your favorite season, correct?
Sins of the Fathers. Yep. Definitely.
So go ahead and tell me a little bit about season 3 and why that's your favorite.
Uh, I like the theme. It's obviously, fathers take a real beating in this season, for whatever reason. It introduces perhaps what I think is not my favorite villain, but probably one of the better handled villains of the entire series, which is Carnage. Cletus Cassidy is just, whew, they really do a good job there.
Which is crazy because of how violent and scary he is in the comics, that they were able to transition him into a kid's cartoon so well.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, with every facet except actually murdering people, like they really nailed down his character. And it's a joy to watch because you really don't know what he's going to do.
His laugh is
Oh,
perfect.
absolutely. I mean, it may even be better than Mark Hamill's.
Mark Hamill is Hobgoblin or the Joker.
Well, I don't really think you can stack it up against the Joker, can you?
Okay, Mark Hamill is Hobgoblin. I'll agree. I think the Carnage is that laugh for Carnage is just so good. I
Yeah,
mean, it's kind of bone chilling.
it really is. But I think, is this the series where you get the introduction of Madame Web as well?
It is.
Yep, very interesting character.
Yep.
Um, I enjoyed. I remember as a kid, I was just like, well, who is this? What is she? Because she's very mysterious, and I love that. Doctor Strange shows up,
Very first episode.
very first episode, and included one of, if not my favorite voice actors, but certainly up there, is Tony Jay, who plays Baron Mordo in the series. Absolutely iconic voice.
Oh, what else has he done?
Um, for my money, the thing I most recognize him for is he's the Elder God in the Legacy of Kain series. But he's done hundreds of other things. That's just where I first heard that voice.
Okay. Um, season 3 holds one of my favorite episodes, and it's episode 2. I do not remember what the title of episode 2 is, but I know exactly what comic they were pulling out of. And it is the kid who collects Spider-Man.
Yeah, I remember that episode. Yeah, so he goes to visit the. I think he's having a sort of crisis of identity and is thinking about hanging up being Spider-Man. So he sort of gives her the origin story, and she sort of helps him back to find himself as a hero. I think,
Yep.
is that the
Yep,
one?
and
Yeah,
absolutely. And this is the episode that gives us the most origin story, like in big chunks. And then not just that, like he talks about being a wrestler, and I mean we get the whole spiel here.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
one of the reasons that I have this highlighted is because did you notice the sign when he's leaving at the very end of the episode?
yeah. Um, it's like a. I can't remember exactly what it says, but it's something like it's a place for like terminally ill children or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a hospital for terminally ill children.
I mean, that's whew, what a downer.
Yeah, and I think the first time I watched through this, I of course didn't pick up on that. And then I knew about the kid who collects Spider-Man. And as I'm watching the episode the last time around, I'm going, this seems an awful lot like that comic. And then, of course, when it ends, it pans out. And I was like, wait a minute, there's no way that they
Hmm.
put that in. And we just got done talking about how Cletus Cassidy is not meant for children, but they they find ways, and I think that's a great sign of a cartoon that's good for any age, is they find ways to add, you know, more adult or teenage themes into a kid's cartoon, and this is a big one if you don't know what's going on. And then of course how a child that is, you know, going to die, and assumably she knows that, and how she's just an inspiration to him, and you know, hey, you can't quit on us, you're important, you mean a lot to everyone. And her name's Tina, that's her name.
Yep. Okay.
You know, quite an incredible little child for her situation, and really in the end she makes him feel guilty for having the troubles that he has.
Yep. Yep.
um,
I it's I think again that is one of the ways that Spider-Man is such a human superhero.
yeah,
And it's little things like that. It sort of emphasizes the fact that, well, anyone can really be a hero.
yeah.
And that's kind of what I love about him.
You know, and as I'm sitting here looking at my notes, I'm looking at the notes that I have for all the episodes and stuff. Season 3 was really good, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
um the Green Goblin in season 3, believe it or not, it takes that long for us to get Green Goblin.
It does. Yeah. It just seems a bit reversed, doesn't it?
And for my money, refreshing.
True. True. Although I have to say, the Green Goblin is probably my favorite Spider-Man villain.
Oh, I'm not going to disagree with how great of a villain he is, but I'm just happy that the show didn't ride on him.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That is true.
And then that's episode 3 that we get the Green Goblin. Episode 6 is Framed. That's the one where the chameleon poses as uh Peter Parker, or no, he poses as Spider-Man. Sorry, he poses as Spider-Man.
Right.
And it's the we get Daredevil in that one, which I love Daredevil. Not
Yeah.
so much in this. He's quirky like he is in the Frank Miller runs, but I didn't love him in the show. But we also get the mention of he says about, I don't actually, now I don't remember if it's the chameleon or who it is, but they mention Parker's traitor parents.
I didn't actually catch that.
Yep,
So they've seeded that even as early as series 3.
yep.
Wow. Okay, that's cool.
And then episode 9, there was another Batman reference. Did you catch that one? It involves Tombstone.
No, I don't think so.
Did you notice how Tombstone's origin is almost identical to the Joker's?
Oh, yeah, falling into the vat of chemical whatever.
And when Spider-Man learns that that's the origin, he says about he's surprised that Tombstone doesn't have green hair.
How did I miss that?
No, you're just not a DC guy.
Well, I mean, true enough, but you don't have to be a DC guy for that. I mean, I'm literally kicking myself.
Yep,
How cool is that?
yep. And again, just every episode, because like I didn't care for the Tombstone character himself. I do like what's the girl that kind of runs with him. She's the daughter of, oh my word, he ends up turning into a baby.
Oh God. So you're talking about, I think,
Alicia
Alicia Silvermane.
Silvermane. Yep, Alicia Silvermane. I
Yeah.
did like her.
Yep. Yep. She was cool.
Didn't care
Right.
for Tombstone, but even the episodes where I was a little bit like less interested, they throw out a Batman nod to drag me back in.
Yeah. And then hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. And then of course the end of season 3 is the nod to the death of Gwen Stacy.
Yep.
How do you think they handled that?
About as well as they could do, given it was a kids' show. I mean, because for all intents and purposes, Peter Parker thinks she's dead.
Right. And she's
Obviously,
not.
we know different, but again, and this is why I love the Green Goblin, because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, some of the other villains you think, well, they're going to fight, they're going to go at it for a while, but ultimately Spider-Man's going to win. But with the Green Goblin, you thought, well, yeah, but what's going to happen along the way?
Right.
Like, what's the collateral damage?
That's.
And
I was just going to say, what's the cost of it?
yeah, absolutely. And in this case, yeah, he loses Mary Jane Parker. Um, sorry, Watson.
Yeah, we're not that far yet.
No, spoilers.
Yeah. Um. So then we go into season 4. We already talked about the great voice acting that gets demonstrated again in season 4 to demonstrate the grief and inner turmoil. And
Hmm.
I didn't really think about this. The voice actor for Spider-Man, I guess, has to be great, right? How do you draw his facial expressions?
Yeah, yeah. Everything has to be the voice. It's
I didn't think of that until now. That's pretty cool.
to this day, this is still the voice of Spider-Man that I hear when I'm reading the comics.
Oh, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it
absolutely,
has to be.
100%, 100%.
I mean, that's him. Um, Kevin Conroy's the Batman when I'm reading. Mark Hamill's the Joker. I
Hmm.
mean, there's just a few voices that hit a character so well. When I'm reading Deadpool, it's Ryan Reynolds,
Oh, it's got to be. Yeah, I.
right?
He might actually be Deadpool in real life.
So, season 4, you and I both kind of agree is the worst season.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, it has its moments, but it just. And this is going to sound. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to sound, but there's just a little bit too much of the. I don't know, grieving. I don't know. It's just like it just goes on a bit too long. Like,
Uh,
obviously, I love.
And
Go on.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say I love happy-go-lucky, cocky, sarcastic Spider-Man, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just being selfish. But I kind of want that guy back.
You know what my issue with it was?
Go on.
It felt too much like a soap opera.
Yes. 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 I think that's what it is.
With him, because Mary Jane's gone and Felicia Hardy has become Black Cat. But Spider Man doesn't know that Felicia Hardy and Black Cat are one and the same. And he is kind of in love with Felicia, but he's also kind of in love with Black Cat, again, not knowing they're the same person. And he's really struggling if he should be in love with either of them because of
Mhm.
what happened to Mary Jane. And it's just the focus on that is way too. And then there's Felicia Harding. Morbius comes back in this season, and then she's torn between Spider-Man and Morbius, and more Blade and more Punisher, which we really didn't. I mean, Blade's cool. I'm glad we got him, but didn't really need more Punisher.
No, it just feels a little unfocused.
Yep. Um, and in all honesty, and not that it's. I don't think it's bad.
No, no. It just,
It
yeah, like you say, it's just, yeah, just a bit too soap opery.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jennifer Hale though as Black Cat. Um, again, so this is what I do. Uh, Commander Shepard from Mass Effect, as well as about 1,000 other things.
I never played those games.
Ah, well, you're missing out.
I know.
And do you know what? Do you know what strikes me as well is that they never actually pay off that Felicia Hardy storyline. Like I
Yeah,
don't.
and at the end of the show, they clearly knew this was going to be the end,
Yeah, and I don't think he ever finds out who she is.
which also seemed really strange to me.
Yeah,
But
I,
again, it's not that it's bad. It's not that it doesn't work. It just too bad they didn't have more time, I guess.
yeah, true, true.
But then we go into what you say is Oh no, it's not your favorite. Is it your second favorite? Season 5? It's my second favorite.
Do you know what? I can't even remember the ranking that I just gave them, but it is
I wrote mine down.
that was like 20 minutes ago. I've had whiskey since then. Uh, it is a great series. It's a great series, but mostly for the end of it.
Sure. So let's clip through this so we can get to the end because I got the end. We got some questions, and we're already uh, getting close to that hour mark.
Sure.
Um, Episode 1 in uh, the 5th season is the wedding episode. Just in case you haven't watched it and you don't care about spoilers, Mary Jane comes back at the end of season 4 and like just out of nowhere. And that's how the season pretty much ends.
Yeah, good ending.
Great, right? We know nothing about Mary Jane
Yeah.
and how she got back, what's going on. She just shows up dripping wet.
Yeah.
Um, Move on. I guess that's not how season 4 ends, but that's close to the, excuse me, that's close to the end. They decide to get married.
Yep.
You know, he tells her that he's Spider-Man. She's, you know, she's into it, whatever. Season 5 starts with the wedding. And what a fun episode was that.
If I had to say, I think J. Jonah Jameson steals the episode.
And that's incredible because everybody's in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it is a lot of fun.
I mean, the Black Cat's gone. She's out vampire hunting with Morbius. She returns for the wedding.
Hmm.
The Insidious Six is there. Kingpin and J. Jonah Jameson are like battling each other to see who can provide Peter Parker with the best wedding possible.
Genius.
It's a lot of fun. It feels like it belongs in season 1.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, definitely. It's just
There's
when when he gives Peter Parker that little van,
Oh, that's good. Great
it
ending.
kills me.
Um, and then in episode 2, like it was almost like they gave you like a hey, here's some fun and fancy free stuff. We haven't done this for a while because again, season 4 was a soap opera. And then season 2, like we had said a little bit ago, they seeded Peter Parker's traitor parents earlier.
Hmm.
Episode 2, we get into that, which
Yeah,
I am so glad that they brought that storyline into the 5th season.
yeah. So I mean, I'm not familiar with the storyline from the comics,
I
but
only am in like reference and in passing. I actually never read the storyline, but I'm glad it was here.
yeah, it's just like because you always know Peter Parker with Aunt May, Uncle Ben, and it's just like I'd always wondered, well, what happened to his parents?
Right.
So I was really, really pleased to get this storyline.
And it's not your typical Spider-Man story because it's more of a Captain America Winter Soldier type story. There's a lot of espionage going on here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
And I'm here for it. I like that stuff. I'm big James Bond fan. Winter Soldier is one of my favorite Marvel movies, and yeah, sure, throw Spider-Man into it. Let's see how he handles a cross-border, deep into Russian territory kind of um, adventure.
Yeah, it took him out of his comfort zone and put him into an entirely new scenario.
Which again, looking ahead to the ending with Madam Web, an
Ho, 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 ho.
incredibly important thing for him to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Out of that
definitely.
comfort zone type stuff. After that whole story, we get the Forgotten Warriors. Now, a little asterisk on this. I've never watched past this episode until now. Of course, I've always dropped off at the Forgotten Warriors.
Oh boy. You were missing out.
I was missing out, but I'm glad I did it because I got to watch it for the first time, and I'm going to geek out about it here in a second.
Sure, sure.
The Forgotten Warriors, season 5, great series. Forgotten Warriors storyline, meh.
Yeah, it's I didn't really like the characters.
Nope.
Like I just had no connection to them. It was painted as this big reveal, and I was just like, who?
Yep.
And obviously you've got Cap, which, yeah, brilliant. I'm on board with that. But it's the others.
Electro. We got Electro.
Yeah, as the ultimate weapon, which was an interesting.
Yep.
It was nice to see because, again, where I've read to in the comics, he's a threat, but not a major one.
Right.
So it was nice to see like them expand on his powers and just make him deadly.
Right. So my biggest complaint with season 5 is they build up and it feels like it's going to be the big ending, and then it never is. So the ultimate weapon, Electro, and then it's just kind of over.
Yeah.
And then we get the and again, this is why he creeps me out. We get the return of Hydro Man.
Again, very odd placement for that. I know why they did it in terms of the story,
Right.
but again,
So
it felt weird.
Mary Jane is again being stalked by Stalker Hydro Man. But this time we learn that it's not actually Mary Jane. She is a Hydro Man esque clone of Mary Jane.
Yep.
So strange.
Clones have never really worked out for Spider-Man in terms of story.
No, not once.
And again, it would it would have worked better if they'd actually then gone on to pay off the Mary Jane storyline.
Right.
But it's just, oh, she's a clone. Well, she's gone again. Now you're off on another adventure.
Yeah. And again, this was, I said I never made it past the Six Forgotten Warriors. That's why. Because a couple years ago, hey, again, lockdown. I decided I was going to watch beginning to end because my job was for me to sit in a vehicle and just traffic watch, I guess. Um, and I got to the Six Forgotten Warriors, and I was talking about it to E. Period. Actually, he's kind of bad with spoiler stuff. He doesn't really think about it, but he was just like, "Oh yeah," and that whole thing with Mary Jane being Hydro Man's weird, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Oh, didn't you know that?" And like, well, now I don't want to finish it,
Well, when you put
and
it
that
like that, I mean, he's not wrong, but it sounds weird when you put it like that.
yeah, and thankfully that's not how the show ended. I went into this watch through thinking that that's how the show was going to end, and I was wrong.
That would have been so bad.
Yeah, but the end ends up being so good, doesn't it?
Oh my god. It's yeah, they really, for what I felt was sort of a mid-series dip, they really pulled out all the stops at the end and just knock it out of the park.
So we get the Beyonder, which is, I don't know. I kind of felt like it, like what the world is the Beyonder doing here? It just kind of felt out of place. Um, but made complete and total sense with when you tie in Madam Web into all of it and what they were building towards.
Yep, yep,
So they go to another dimension, another planet, and the Beyonder pulls a bunch of villains into this planet. He sends them way in the future, and they basically dominate the planet. All the people there are either slaves or dead. The villains have carved out their own little utopias. It's their planet, and then he throws Spider-Man there and says, "You get to pick. I think it's seven. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, I'm counting. Yeah, 7. You get to pick 7 heroes to come aid you. Now,
yep,
technically, it ends up being 9 by the end of it.
yep.
Um,
That's right. Yep,
but Spider-Man picks the Fantastic Four, Iron Man, Captain America, Storm. He later turns the Lizard to his side, and Black Cat shows up at the end.
yep.
Um, the main villain is Victor Von Doom.
Of course.
And watching this, I could not have been happier that we got to squeeze in the Fantastic Four and Doom, because if you go back to season 2 and 3 when the show was very guest star happy, I'm sitting there going, I can't believe the Fantastic Four isn't involved in this somewhere.
And there you go. Snuck him in at the last minute.
And how cool, right?
Oh, God. I mean, Doom is just cool. He is an iconic villain. And, I love the Fantastic Four, but Doom is again, one of Marvel's greatest villains.
And it shows in this. He has his own little patch of this planet carved out. It for all intents and purposes, it looks like a utopia.
Mm-hmm.
But
New Latveria.
Latveria, yep. And then he learns about the Beyonder and his power and ends up trying to steal the Beyonder's power, succeeds.
Yep.
And it goes, of course, horribly wrong. And I guess this is Secret Wars is what these episodes titles. Not quite actually Secret Wars like the comics, but I would have been happy if it ended this way.
It would have been a good ending. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Secret Wars is a big storyline, and you're basically just taking some of the greatest villains and the greatest heroes and just having them duke it out on a planet with no consequence.
Right. And it was fun.
It was loads of fun.
So again, just to reiterate, the Fantastic Four, Iron Man, Captain America, and Storm are the original 7 that Spider-Man brings to this planet to aid him in his battle, right?
Right.
Who would have your 7 have been?
That is a good question. So the villains are all the same.
Yeah, villains are all the same. Which it's Doom, Lizard, Doc Ock, and I'm blanking on the rest.
Oh, blimey.
Oh, Alistair Smythe.
Oh, yes. New and improved.
Yeah. Was Shocker one?
I'm not sure. Red Skull.
Oh, my word, yes.
Yep. So in that sense, I'd probably keep Captain America because that just makes sense.
Sure.
I think you only really need Reed Richards. Don't get me wrong, the other Fantastic Four are great, but the power sets are equivalent. Reed Richards is a genius. So
Sure.
tactically, he's very useful. I'd probably bring in Doctor Strange. Because I mean, you could argue Doom, but I don't think anyone has got any mystical powers that could really stand up. I'd bring in Rogue from the X-Men just because I think she's cool. What's that for?
Mm-hmm.
Who else? I mean, Iron Man proved to be more of a liability in this episode than anything else. So, less. See, I don't want to do that to Iron Man because he's kind of iconic. I don't know. I'm kind of drawing a blank on 4. I'll have to think on that. If any more come to me, I'll let you know.
So my 7, I would do Daredevil.
Okay.
Hand-to-hand combat, he's hard to beat.
True. Not a lot. Not a lot to swing on though. But then I suppose that's true of Spider-Man as well.
Right. I'm going to keep Storm.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
Her elemental. She's an elemental powerhouse. I do keep Iron Man. Again, for the genius element of it. I keep Cap because it's Captain America.
Yep.
I do have Human Torch. I was picking solely from the entire animated series.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have Human Torch and Thing. And then I have Wolverine.
Yeah, I think Wolverine's a lock. He's got to be, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, just pull the pin, throw him in, and just sit back and watch.
And again, my first time watching this, I was pretty shocked that Wolverine didn't end up in this. And I don't know, maybe they intended to and they couldn't get the voice actor to agree to it, but um, I thought for sure Wolverine would end up being one.
Yeah, you'd think. I mean, I definitely would have picked him over Black Cat.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure why she's there. I mean, she's a cool character, don't get me wrong, but
Um, I remember his reasoning being she would help keep him grounded.
I
Um,
suppose,
she
but
was there for more of emotional support. Um,
which is
Plus,
interesting.
he also found out that his wife is actually made of water, so maybe he was looking for companionship.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
okay. Thinking with little Spidey, yep.
yeah, but
Um,
so anyway, that series kind of ends, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is a good end to the show, but we get one of those, okay, and now the real test, and it's like the third time they kind of do that to us,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and I was like, do I really have, like, I think it was two or three more episodes to get through? Like, why can't it just end there? And I really was like, it took me a while to watch the last handful of episodes because personally, I didn't want to. I was happy with what happened. And I was just like, I don't want to finish this. Um, you may now proceed to telling me how horribly wrong I was.
So horribly wrong. Just absolutely just pays off the entire series. The last two episodes, the Spider Wars, I think,
Yeah.
probably the best two episodes in the series. I mean, season 5 may not be my favorite series, but it probably has my favorite episodes in it, and it's these two.
Yep. So go ahead and give us a little bit of a little synopsis on what Spider Wars is.
Well, everything up until this point has been a test, and it's been happening in multiple realities, multiple timelines to find the Spider Man to lead a team of other Spider Men to basically save every reality. And it's just magnificent. Um, you have one, I suppose variant is now the word, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got one variant of Peter Parker who has bonded with the Carnage symbiote and has gone completely off the rails. And with the help of Kingpin and whoever else, he designs a basically a bomb that will destroy every parallel universe. I mean, come on, do you need any higher stakes than that?
Yeah, when you think about it, it doesn't really make sense, but who cares? It's fun.
I mean, they see the what was the device?
I can't remember either.
You know the one that creates portals.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's there. The groundwork is there. I mean, okay, how do you destroy every reality? No, we won't go too deep into that, but it is a cool concept.
right. Um, so one of the quote unquote variants, I guess we're calling them, is actually Scarlet Spider,
Yep, yep, that's right.
which that was cool to see. I did not expect to see Scarlet Spider.
Nope.
And in his reality, he's actually married to Gwen Stacy.
Yes, yes. Again, a cameo I was not expecting.
Nope, but I could not have been happier that they threw her in there.
Yep, she deserves it.
And again, you already mentioned Spider Carnage.
Spider
And
Carnage.
how great of a villain was that for a final villain?
Even
Uh,
better than regular Carnage.
right. Now I'm gonna ask you, kind of sidetrack. Did you ever play the PS1 Spider-Man game
Yes, yes, I love that game.
with, uh, I guess, Octopus Carnage at the end of it?
Yep, chasing you down the corridors. Yeah,
Oh,
that was like tense.
Yeah, and that's all I could think of the whole time I'm watching this last episode
That's
was
fair.
how terrifying that Octopus Carnage was, and how this Carnage Spider-Man or Spider Carnage is. He's terrifying too, and goes back to that. Carnage is just such a good villain, and
Yep.
villain for a villain's sake. No ulterior motives other than just, well, Carnage.
Nope. Just a bad, bad man or
Um,
symbiote.
yeah. Uh, and then so this Spider Carnage is Peter Parker in that
Yep.
universe, and the way they get him to fight off the symbiote,
Oh, just beautiful, beautiful.
it's like poetry.
It's yeah, just such a it ties everything up in a nice, neat little bow.
So original Spider-Man realizes that this is an alternate universe, and he is the Spider-Man that lives in that universe has lost nothing. So he says, "I'm going to get the one person that can help us change his mind."
Yep.
And the way the whole story has gone, you're meant to expect Mary Jane.
Yeah, 100%.
But what we get instead is Uncle Ben.
Uncle Ben, who is still alive in this universe and is the only person to talk an insane Peter Parker Spider Carnage down from destroying every reality.
So
Mwah.
at the end of it all, it's not even like Spider-Man or any of these superheroes that stop him. It's Uncle Ben, and it's because of that connection that Uncle Ben has with Peter Parker, and you just did it. The mwah.
Mwah.
If it have been any more beautiful.
And again, it's after everything else, it's the human side of the character that wins out.
I don't know if I could have put it any better myself. That is beautifully spoken.
Thank you.
And and again, right back to why is Spider-Man such a great character?
Yep, it's all heart. Just
Um, so again, if it would have ended right there, you would have been tickled pink.
I would have been absolutely stuffed to the brim, ready to lie down and have a nice little nap. Absolutely satisfied.
But instead, we get another like maybe 5 minute section where there's a variant, right,
Yep.
that has no powers whatsoever. At the end of everything, everyone goes home except for OG Spider-Man and this powerless Spider-Man. And Madam Web sends him to this world where he is a actor.
Yep.
And the reason is he feels that the original Spider-Man needs to talk to someone in his universe.
Yep. So this is essentially the real world. An actor
Right.
who plays Spider-Man.
Right. And this last cameo I didn't expect, but it almost brought a tear to my eye.
Yep. And maybe, given that it's Marvel, maybe you should have expected it, but I didn't.
Well, no, and if you haven't figured it out, you've seen him in almost every Marvel movie up until I think it was Captain Marvel.
I think, yep, you're right. Captain Marvel.
So you know what? I I'm torn. Do we even say who it is at this point?
Do you know what? No, I think it was Infinity War, but go on. Yeah, do you think they know?
At this point, you would have to know, right?
Of course. The man
Um,
himself.
we get Stan Lee at the end,
Yes, we do.
and it's incredible. And Spider-Man takes Stan Lee web slinging, and he is just. I think the right analogy would be a kid on Christmas,
Yep.
and so appreciative of Spider-Man, and it's just there's just take away everything in that episode, we get to see Stan Lee's true appreciation for one of his characters.
one of his favorite characters, you could argue.
Yeah, and how he really feels about that character in real life. This isn't. I mean, it's a cartoon, but in that moment, it's so much more than a cartoon. It's Stan Lee putting his stamp of approval on it. Is really what it is.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep. Just it's a mutual display of respect. The show for the creator for the show for the character.
And again, the chef's kiss to end that show. And
Absolutely.
there's a couple of a few video games pop into mind, a few movies. When they end game's one of them. When it ends, you just sit there for a good like 3 minutes and just
Yep. Absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. And I've got just one more of my little voice acting tidbits for you.
oh
Oh, yes, I saved the best till last, I think. So, towards the end of the episode, we get a scene where Madame Web appears on the roof.
yep.
And Stanley says something like, "Who is that exotic woman?" or what have you. And in turn, Madame Web says, "Oh, he's a very special man." Madame Web was actually played by Joan Lee, Stanley's wife.
No way.
Way. So not only
That is
so
incredible.
not only do you get the character and the creator showing love and respect for each other, you get the man and his wife doing the same. I just thought that was beautiful.
How insane is that?
Yep.
Well, this is an extremely long episode for me, and I really hope I kind of wish you would have put that in the beginning. I hope everyone hung on this long to hear that. That is insane. I mean, that ending carries such a different weight to it now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I thought it was just like a little silly joke to throw in at the end.
Nope.
Wow. So
Nope.
cool. What a great show.
Exactly. It's just so much humanity, and just so much fun.
Man. Wow. So the voice acting's great.
Yep.
The music, including but not excluded to the theme song, the music in the entirety is fantastic.
Sure is. Yeah, you always know what is happening on the screen. Even if you didn't watch, you could just listening to the musical cues, you sort of can guess what's going on.
Yep. Um, my favorite story arc, excluding Spider Wars, is the Symbiote Saga. What's yours?
I think I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to include the Spider Wars because it's just such a good ending. That would be my favorite. If I have to choose something other than that, I might have to go for. I'm going to say, I'm going to have to go for Secret Wars.
Okay. Uh,
It's just
it
so
has
much fun.
it has my favorite villain, which is Venom. Um, it has. I also have a side note as Hydro Man, but that's just because he's scary. Um, it has your favorite villain, which is
The Green Goblin.
Green Goblin. Um, it has my favorite guest heroes. Actually, my favorite guest hero is Daredevil, but for the show, it was Wolverine and the X-Men as a whole. Yours
Yep.
was.
No, I'm going to agree with the X-Men because again, I loved that show.
Should I anger everyone? I've actually never made it through the first season of it.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's your homework.
Yeah. I actually I we're wrapping up this show if it's not obvious enough. And just to before we get into our final goodbyes here, I do plan on doing more of these. Just maybe a season at a time.
Yeah, maybe not quite as maybe we don't binge it quite as much as you did last time.
Um, so I do plan on X-Men being one, but I think I'm gonna flop back and forth. I think I might do a DC show next. Um, but I think this was a great idea, and I can't say thank you enough for you jumping on here and doing it with me, especially with the time difference and both of us being, full time workers and full time parents, and
Hmm.
this is great.
This has been so much fun, honestly. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been. Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, without a doubt, we will be doing this again. If nothing else, maybe for an exclusive interview when you hit a big voice acting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you'll get the exclusive.
Um, Before we sign off here, would you like to just shout out maybe some future plans of yours? I know you kind of did in the beginning, but just reiterate.
Yeah, so I mean, again, I'll be working on putting some public domain audiobooks up on the YouTube page. Hopefully, I'll start working on that soon. I'll have a website up shortly with my commercial voice reel and just any other projects I might be working on. And I'll just keep plugging away, just trying to get that first job.
Yeah. Which, again, this is May, so in 3 months, you probably are going to have that stuff on until people hear this.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
So, YouTube channel, follow that voice. Is that what it
Uh,
was?
Follow my voice. Oh, 7614, I think, is the username. As I say, I don't have a custom name for it just yet, but
All
you can
right.
find it. You can find it. I'll pop the link in the Discord as well for those that are there.
Yeah, sure. And when I put the episode, I'll have that link in the description. I'll make sure I get it from you then.
Yep,
Um,
brilliant. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
yeah. So as always with my comic reviews, we're gonna end this the same way I end my comic reviews. Four categories. What are you doing? Get on it. Watch it. Because you can't read this one.
Yep.
And finally, skip it. I don't think either of us need to say it, but we have to say it.
I mean,
So,
as a die-hard Spider-Man fan who loves the character more than any other, I guess, what are you doing? What are you doing?
yeah, and I couldn't agree more. What are you doing? I understand. If it missed you, maybe you were a little too young in the 90s or what have you, but there's Disney Plus. I almost guarantee if you're listening to my show, you have Disney Plus. Almost guarantee it. It's maybe not. Um, but if you do have it, what are you doing?
Check it
Um,
out. It's a good time. You won't regret it.
yeah. So again, thanks to Captain Alcatraz for doing this little show with us. I know that we've actually had requests for you doing a show with me. Actually on a comic rather than this episode. So it'll be a nice little surprise for the people that get to hear you before we do that comic, which I definitely plan on doing once I get to it. But uh, that's it. I'm Unbuckled Cape with Captain Alcatraz saying, "What are you doing?" And we're going to be doing episodes every week starting next week. So we'll talk to you next week. And until then, get out there and save the world, you bunch of heroes.